If you are suffering, it is due to a misguided belief. My friend Boethius says this in the Consultation of Philosophy. Life is what you deem it to be. Marcus Aurelius tells us this. And this is the same thing. If you are suffering, it is due to your mind. It is due to your evaluation of the situation that you are in. If you could reframe it correctly, you would no longer be suffering. And why would you want to suffer? For what benefit do you gain from continually suffering? So why wouldn't you want to change that? And it's all can be done through the mind and through reframing the situation. Now, this can be done rationally. You don't need to become ignorant of your hardships and your adversities to overcome a misguided belief, because as it is written, the belief is misguided. Now do me a favor and think about all the things that happened to you in the past that you thought were the worst things that could have ever happened to you. And now looking back, it turns out they were one of the best things that ever happened to you. Maybe not all of them, but maybe it's just you're not further enough on the time horizon to see the implications of that event happening and see what it did for you. See that it made you a better person. See that it woke you up from beliefs that you held that were hurting you and holding you back. See that it helped you become a better person. See that it helped you meet people that have made you a better person and have become lifelong friends. Or you have lost people that you thought were going to be lifelong friends. I like to remind myself that when I am going through a hard time, or when I can't see and I can't understand why something is happening, because I like to believe that everything happens for a reason, and that reason is for the best. And sometimes it's very hard when you're in the moment of something happening that you can't see any reason why this happens. But I've been in that moment many of times, and it wasn't till a year or two, or even more, even longer later, that I was able to see why that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. So it's very valuable to remind yourself that in that situation, that ask yourself, how will this age? If this will age well, why would I waste now being negative and being down and being sad if this is going to turn out to be one of the best things that has ever happened to me? Because there's a domino effect with things that happen. So you have to trust that everything happens for a reason, and that reason is for the best. And I think allowing yourself to believe that all suffering comes from misguided beliefs is good news, because it's within your control. Why would you want to hear that you're suffering due to something that you have no control over? Because then it would be impossible for you to fix it. And that's not good. That's not fun. It's not good, because then you just have to suffer. But when you realize that it's a misguided belief that is the root cause of your suffering, it puts the power into your hands, it makes it in your control, and that should give you hope. That should give you positive energy to reframe this situation into a situation that could be beneficial to you. I often asked for strength, and when adversities came my way, I whined and I complained. And it's sad, because how else are you supposed to build strength of character without adversity? How else are you supposed to become patient without being put in situations where your patience is tested? How else are you supposed to become kind when you don't have the urge to be unkind to people? How else are you supposed to practice these virtues and develop these virtues without being put in these situations? If you've asked for strength and you've been put through adversity, you should thank whatever it is you think. Or just be grateful that you're having a chance to develop your virtue and your strength. Because a life, without adversity, you never know. You never know what you were truly capable of. You never know. Who would have Hercules have been without his labors? He would have been nobody. His virtue, his strength, his character, all would have been wasted. But instead, he was given 12 labors, and we still know who Hercules is today. So reframing is very powerful. And allow yourself to realize that when you are suffering, there is a misguided belief that you are holding on to. It could be you think something is unjust and it shouldn't be happening to you, or you think that you're being wronged. But these things they have nothing to do with you. Because as Socrates says, it's so much better to be wronged than to do wrong. Why are we holding the metaphorical pot by the handle that can't bear weight? There's two ways to view a situation. This is unfortunate, or this is fortunate that it is happening to me and I am bearing it nobly. Marcus Aurelius says that. And Epictetus gives us the pot metaphor. Why would you choose to hold something by a rusted, cracking handle when you have a solid gold handle that you can firmly grasp onto? It makes no sense. And you have to view things philosophically to be able to bear things nobly and to be able to realize that you have a misguided belief. I'm often asked, what has philosophy done for me? And I usually sit with this question because I try not to answer questions as if they were already answered and I just regurgitate something I've already come up with, because each moment calls for something different and I try to live in the moment and I don't want to give regurgitated answers to people. So when I think, often the same answer pounds my head, and that is how to live. And it's unfortunate because when I say that to people, they say, "Oh, I already know how to live." And they discard philosophy. And I feel like I've done philosophy a disservice. But then I remember a quote in the letters of a Stoic. Seneca's friend Lucilius says, "I believe many men would have become wise if they didn't believe themselves to already be so." And these same people that tell me they already know how to live look for happiness outside of themselves. These same people that tell me they already know how to live value money over virtue. These same people that tell me they already know how to live lose their temper like that. These same people that tell me they know how to live make fun of people because they don't know that no one is willingly deprived of the truth. They don't know that everyone is just doing what they believe is best. That's all anyone can ever do. If there was two situations for me right now and I evaluated them, I would choose what I believed was best. And that's all anyone ever does. And if they make the wrong choice, it was out of ignorance. It was not out of malicious intent. It wasn't out of anything. Because they did what they believed was best, and that's all anyone ever does. But these people that tell me they know how to live, sacrifice their whole lives, being slaves to their desires, being slaves to their lower self, judging people as if they don't have the same faults. And maybe that would be a better answer to give to somebody who asked me what philosophy did for me. But how to live encompasses that whole, all I just said. And no one ever asked me to elaborate. They just say they already know how to live and leave it at that. And the lips of wisdom are sealed to the ears of ignorance. And nobody wants to listen. Everyone thinks they're wise. Everyone already thinks they know how to live. Even though everyone has misguided beliefs. And that is why they suffer. Everyone looks for happiness outside of themselves. Not everybody, but most people. You can be happy in hell if paradise is inside. And you can be sad in paradise if hell is inside. But nobody takes the time to learn these things. Everyone believes they're already wise. And that's why Socrates was the wisest. Because Socrates knew he knew nothing. There's so much judgment in the world nowadays. Judgment as if people don't have those same faults. It's insane to me. People judge people for being mean or being rude. But in their judgment of the person, they are rude and mean about that person. Standing on their high horse of moral excellence and humility, they're a jerk to another person. And that's the day and age we live in. And it's probably the day and age that's always been. But we can't go far enough back to see. But I think the knowledge of knowing that your suffering is coming from a misguided belief is profound. Because as Epictetus says, it isn't what happens to us that matters. It's how we react. It is how we react to the outside world that matters. It isn't what the outside world throws at us, because we have no control over this. And if you place your values in things outside of your control, why are you surprised when you become miserable? Why are you surprised when things don't go your way? It was outside of your control. It was bound. It was bound to not go your way. Maybe in the littlest of ways, but still. If it's outside of your control, why do you place your well-being into it? Everyone suffers due to these misguided beliefs. Life is mental. Your world is mental. It's all about perception. The world is just one big impression. People hold two different views about the same situation. And that just proves that the situation itself is indifferent. And it's just the views people have about it. Because like I said, everyone does what they believe is best. And everyone thinks what they believe is best. So this thing is neither good or bad. It just is. But people throw their identity into it and they tie their well-being to it, and then they let it bring them down. They hold on to it so tightly that when it falls, they go with it, and when it rises, they go with it instead of just being content. This book, I don't know how I missed it. Apparently, it's a staple of Roman philosophy, and it's a beautiful book. I highly recommend it. It's about Boethius being wrongly. That's the other thing. This guy said suffering is due to a misguided belief. And he was wrongly accused of something, unjustly accused, and he is sent to exile and sent to death. And he wrote this book in exile, waiting to be executed. And he says suffering is due to a misguided belief. So maybe you hear me say it and you say, "Oh, but you don't understand. My life is hard." Well, I'm just saying what Boethius said. Your life probably right now, you probably are in exile awaiting execution. What you're going through is probably better than what he went through. And he was able to say that. But the dialogue he has in this book is it's a dialogue with Lady Philosophy, talking about Lady Fortune, and talks about how fickle fortune is and how we should not place our well-being in fortune, because fortune is a horrible ground to stand on. You have no control over it, and it goes up and down. And to stand on something like that, it's like building your house on sand, building your house on the side of a cliff that is being berated by the waves day in and day out, just waiting to crumble. But this seems to be where everyone builds their house nowadays. They place their well-being in all these things outside of themselves, in their status, in their job title, and with their money. It's crazy to me how people still sacrifice their whole lives for money, when it's so obvious that money has brought nothing but hardships to many people. People have anxiety about not having enough money, and then when they get money, they have anxiety about losing money. That is not happiness. The more you have, the more you worry. Now, I think a lot of people think having a lot of money is life on easy mode, but I think it's actually life on hard mode. And that's because money brings out who you truly are. Money and power bring out who you truly are. And how many people have shown how corrupted they are when given money and power? So many. It's so much harder. It's so much harder to live a virtuous life with money. You have to show so much more virtues. A life of poverty just has to be shown with contentment, not having greed. But a life with money, you have to show, moderation. I can't show greed. You can't show envy because all these other people have more money than you. And, you have to figure out what's enough, because the hedonic treadmill, hedonic adaptation, the baseline always moving. And then you start living outside of your means and you believe you're better than people. Life with money is on hard mode, especially if you're working a job that demands you never stop working. But people sacrifice their whole lives for money just to find out that money doesn't give them happiness. It's a misguided belief, and that's why everyone's suffering. And yeah, maybe you don't want to hear me say that, but Boethius is in a worse situation than you are. I can almost guarantee. And if he's not, what is What is you holding on to this belief that's making you suffer doing for you? How's that working out for you? Reframing is very powerful. And a situation can always be reframed to be in your best interest. And it is in your best interest to reframe situations to make them in your best interest.